they win something called the Commissioner's Cup.
It's a nice little honor. What does it really mean?
When she twerks, we listen. When she speaks, we listen. When she takes down punks on other teams, we listen. Fever, a scrappy bunch. It's when teams rallied when their best player went down.
Right now, are the Fever better without Caitlin Clark? Oh, my God. Can't say that. Can't say that.
The Indiana Fever, who last night, unexpectedly, without Caitlin Clark in street clothes, the Indiana Fever, 10.5-point underdogs against the Minnesota Lynx. They win something called the Commissioner's Cup. The prestigious, it's the green jacket of women's basketball, apparently. The Commissioner's Cup. I guess it is the WNBA's answer to the NBA Cup, which certainly didn't require an answer, but I suppose the WNBA wanted to give one. So the Indiana Fever has won the in-season tournament, entering the game 8-8. And without Caitlin Clark, they go into Minnesota and they win. Minnesota 14-2 on the season going into the game last night. So pretty unexpected. The Fever, a scrappy bunch. Ewing theory, I believe, is what Bill Simmons used to call this, when teams rallied when their best player went down. A little Ewing theory last night in Minnesota. And let's just say Sophie Cunningham, we've talked about it on the program. She has become the number 2 star on the Indiana Fever, and there's Sophie Cunningham celebrating. That just a little twerk there. You don't think God the Oklahoma City Thunder didn't do that when they won the NBA Finals. I want to run that back like the Zapruder film.
I was going to say, I was looking away. I was looking away. Can you show it again?
Back and to the left. I'm the Jim Garrison of Sophie Cunningham twerking footage here. We don't care about this part.
Oh, there we go.
There she is.
Just cut it right there. Just cut it right there. There we go.
I'm telling you. Well, there you go. There's a celebration. I feel like we're all winners. I feel like I just won my own version of the Commissioner's Cup after that beautiful moment. Don't you? Ronnie t-shirts. I know, it's a good thing a camera's not on Ronnie right now. God only knows what's happening in Nashville, Tennessee. Sophie Cunningham making news for things that she said recently as well. As we talked about on the program yesterday, the WNBA is kind of hot-shotting expansion right now. They have caught momentum with Caitlin Clark. The Golden State Valkyries entered the league this year. We've got Portland, I believe, on deck, and I can't even remember what the other team is. And then we've got Cleveland and Detroit and Philadelphia. Isn't there another one, though, before that? Tell me. Golden State, I think they paid $50 million, and then Portland's paying $75. I feel like there was another city that paid $75 that we mentioned. And now we've got Cleveland, Detroit, and Philadelphia, who all have paid $250 million to get into the WNBA. And Sophie Cunningham, who, look, when she twerks, we listen. When she speaks, we listen. When she takes down punks on other teams for getting a little handsy with the golden goose of the WNBA, we listen. And let's take a little look here. Sophie Cunningham questioning whether the WNBA is expanding to the best cities.
NBA side, because it is helpful. It's way more helpful. You just get more perks, more opportunities, and so I get that aspect. But I also think that you want to listen to your players too. Like, where do they want to play? Where are they going to get excited to play and draw fans? And I do think that Miami would have been a great one. Like, everyone loves Florida. Nashville is an amazing city. Kansas City, amazing opportunity. There's a huge arena downtown that no one's using. And I think that the Women's Soccer League is showing that, like, people draw, and so I'm not so sure what the thought process is there. But at the end of the day, you also want to make sure that you're not expanding our league too fast. I think that's also another thing, that you don't want teams to totally dominate and then have teams that aren't. And so I just think that it's kind of a hard decision-making situation. But man, I don't know how excited people are to be going to Detroit or Cincinnati.
Sophie Cunningham questioning where the league is expanding to. It's Golden State this year. Portland and Toronto are next. And then I believe 2028, 2029, 2030, we're going to see Cleveland, Detroit, and Philadelphia in some order. And Sophie saying Miami's nice. What's wrong with Miami? Nashville, Ronnie? She's shouting out your town there.
Sophie is welcome. Sophie is welcome here anytime.
You wouldn't mind seeing the Fever come to town, I'm sure, and Kansas City, which is another nice place. But she's throwing some shade at Cleveland and Detroit. What's wrong with Cleveland and Detroit? It's not like the WNBA's expanding to Cobb, is it? It's not that bad. No, wait a minute. I believe Cobb is on the agenda. Cobb is 2033, Ron, is when the league is going to get there. So you think Detroit and Cleveland are bad? Wait till you see the next slate of expansion cities. You're not going to want any part of it. There's a chicken in the background, Ron. I see. That's the enforcer of that team, no doubt, the chicken. And, God, I don't even know what to say about this. We have talked about her on this program. Red Panda. You may not know the name, but if you're a basketball fan, there's a decent chance that you're familiar with who this woman is. She is the lady who rides a unicycle at halftime of basketball games, NBA games. I saw her at the United Center at a Bulls game a number of years ago. She rides a unicycle around and basically kicks, I don't know, dinnerware onto her head.
Bowls.
Is that an accurate summary, Tim? Bowls onto her head. And it's amazing. We talked about it on the show. How does she do it? I don't have a single talent in my entire useless life that comes anywhere near to how amazing this woman is. I have no idea how she does it. Last night, she proved that she's human because at the Indiana-Minnesota game, you're going to see Red Panda here doing her thing as she has done 100 times. And no, she took a tumble right there. And apparently they just went straight to commercial. What was that? There she is. She's okay, from what I understand. It's okay for us to laugh because she wasn't significantly injured. Is that correct, Tim?
They did have to take her off the floor. No, they had to take her off the floor, and her unicycle left a scuff mark and a big ding. So they had to buff the floor up. In all seriousness, the floor took more damage.
Well, you hate it.
Yeah,
you hate it when that happens. When the unicycle scuffs the court, you don't want to have any incidents there. Look,
my question is: does this help?
Our best to her.
Of course. Does this help or hurt her Hall of Fame case? I really think we need to get her in the Hall of Fame. There's many people who say that. I hope Springfield, Massachusetts is watching and listening today.
It hurts her case, Tim. We can't have klutzes going into the Hall of Fame. That just ruined it right there for me. I was all in on the 30-plus year body of work until I saw her. No, it makes it even more amazing because you realize that she's not practicing sorcery. Let's go ahead and bring in an OutKick Hall of Famer. He would get my write-in vote to go to Springfield, I'll tell you that. He is, of course, the host of Don't At Me on OutKick every day at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. I speak, of course, of the pride of the Hoosier State of Indiana. Dan Dakich joins the program. Dan, what did you think of Red Panda Lady falling there? It was a tense moment as she crashed to the ground.
You know, Willie Mays taught us this back in the day. Sometimes you stay a little too long. Sometimes you just, you know what? You can't retire. You love the limelight. You love being out there flipping dishes onto your head and getting the applause. But you know what, Ricky? It happens to the best of us.
It's intoxicating,
stay in the game
I'm
just
sure.
a little too long, man. A little too long. Yeah.
You're right. It was her 1973 World Series last night is what happened.
Yep.
55 years of age, Dan. It's time to hang up the slippers. Maybe,
I'm saying,
pursue other endeavors.
You're on a unicycle, big crowd. You know, she's not the same performer she was in her 40s, let's be honest. But who is, Ricky? Who is? Nobody. Absolutely nobody. So, Red Panda.
It's true.
I think it's time. I do. I think it's time. I hate to say it, but I think it's time.
Father Time is undefeated, Dan. I think is what we all have to acknowledge. And no shame in it. There's no shame in it. She needs to listen to her body, Dan. Dan, what do you make?
Yes.
What do you make of this Commissioner's Cup? I'm on record as thinking that the NBA Cup is one of the stupidest fucking things that I've ever seen. Apparently, the WNBA has their own version of this. Where on the level of lack of prestige among sporting championships does the WNBA Commissioner's Cup rank?
I think it ranks somewhere. Well, I think it's right with being the most handsome man at a Dakich family reunion. I think that's how important it is right there. I think that's where, it's a nice little honor, but what does it really mean? I will say this, though. The gals, it meant something because they were dumping champagne. You saw the celebration. I mean, so, hey, good for them. I guess good for them, good for the league, better for the league that Sophie Cunningham, is involved and Caitlin Clark and Lexi Hall is involved. But I don't know, but it does beg the question on my afternoon show. Right now, are the Fever better without Caitlin Clark? Oh, my God. Can't say that. Can't say that. I can't say that. No. But that's the question.
All right,
are they better without her right now?
Let's talk about Caitlin Clark, because the thing that people have been gnashing their teeth over this week, the Caitlin Clark thing of concern of the moment is that the players had her voted as the 9th best guard in the All-Star Game voting. Dan, it's half fan vote, it's 25% media, it's 25% players. I think she was first among fans, third among media, second or third among media, 9th among her peers. What's your take on that? Because, Dan, the thing I will say here is, we know the jealousy's real. That's well documented. There's no question that a lot of her peers don't appreciate her very much, against their own best interest, I would add. But she really hasn't had the greatest sophomore season to this point. She obviously had the tremendous sequence against the New York Liberty where we're like, damn, 3 3-pointers in 38 seconds. That's what she brings to the league that literally no other player does. But she's averaging almost 6 turnovers a game. She's shooting 29% from 3. Is there an argument that, so she's missed a bunch of games? Is there an argument that that's fair this particular season, that maybe she is a little lower down the list?
Yeah, I think, she hasn't played well. In fact, I would argue, and I've said this about Damian Lillard, and I'll say the same thing about her. She shoots these long threes, and when a couple go in a game, everybody loses their mind, and they show them on highlights, and everybody wants to be like Dame or Caitlin Clark, except that this year Caitlin Clark has made some, but she shot them at really inopportune times and cost her team games with bad shot selection and turnovers. So, yeah, I think so, but I will say this. For a girl that's 9th best guard, not a ninth best player, but 9th best guard, man, they sure pick her ass up full court. They sure do double team her. They sure do switch to her. They sure do get aggressive in guarding her. I get it, but I would argue that by the way teams approach the Fever and approach Caitlin Clark relative to how teams approach the other 8 guards, particularly somebody like Paige Beckers, who's just getting in the league, I would say, yes, there's a little bit of argument. She hadn't played great, but I would say 80% of it is the typical bullshit of WNBA, petty, racist, sexist, angry lesbians. I would say that probably has more to do with it. Paige Beckers has bent the knee. Allegedly she, is a lesbian, so she's in with the cool kids. So, in her first 5 games, 10 games, 20 games, she's considered ahead of Caitlin Clark. Nonsense. But, hey, look, I get it. She hasn't played great, but she's better than a lot of those ladies, particularly the Paige Beckers of the world.
Yeah, if we're drafting WNBA guards from scratch, I think she goes first. We just haven't seen the best. I haven't seen the best of her yet. This year. Dan,
hey, Ricky,
we saw the best.
Ricky, remember this. Remember this in Indianapolis. Our guy Tyrese Halliburton was considered overrated by players, right? And how'd that work out with him in the playoffs? Pretty damn good until the injury. That's what we're saying here. Look, keep doubting her. Looks like the team is going to get better. She'll be back. And next thing you know, it'll be Caitlin Mania all over again.
I'm still a believer. There's no doubt about that, Dan. All right, let's talk about the big story that dropped yesterday. OutKick's Dan Zakshesky with the story that the University of Pennsylvania, they're going to apologize now for Leah Thomas and everything that happened during, I suppose it was the 2021-2022 season. That's when Riley Gaines came onto the scene and became famous for being the person who had the courage to stand up and speak out against this after competing against Leah Thomas. They've agreed to resolve Title IX violations, Dan, as you know, relating to this. And as a part of it, Penn is going to adopt definitions for male and female that are consistent with biological sex. Imagine that. Revolutionary. Dan, that's the best idea of the Middle Ages that they've figured out in the Ivy League now. And they will be restoring records and titles to female athletes, as well as issuing personal apologies to every impacted female swimmer. Dan, I know that you had Riley on the show this morning. Let's go to a little bit of tape from that, and then I want to get your reaction.
Do you think other schools will say, all right, we're going to make clear definitions based on what happened at Penn?
That's the intention, I think, with any of these cultural issues that have really plagued this country the past few years. I mean, historically, what has been the most effective and ultimately making change is making an example out of someone. And that's what the Trump administration has now done with the University of Pennsylvania. That's what they're doing with the state of California and the state of Maine, for example. They're saying, look, if you continue to violate the law, we will withhold federal funds. You don't get to defiantly ignore what federal law says and then reap the benefits of following federal law. So that's the intention. Again, hopefully it sets the precedent, not just for, again, colleges, but for every level of sport. Of course, we have seen this gone on, in elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, much more drastically. We've seen this even at the Olympic level.
Dan, obviously Riley has been instrumental in this story getting the scrutiny that it deserves. OutKick, in fact, I think has been pretty instrumental in keeping this story in the public consciousness and not allowing it to just drift away. After talking to Riley this morning, what are your big takeaways on this? And do you think that we're going to see other schools following suit?
Yeah, my takeaway is hopefully, and Riley and I discussed it, this is the beginning. It's so ridiculous that you have to do this. This is like the least controversial thing ever. Hey, man, keep dudes with penises away from competing against women and out of women's locker rooms. Damn. That's like the least controversial thing ever, but it is going to be interesting because, frankly, no matter what liberals tell us, this is happening more and more. It's happening in California. We've seen it happen in Maine. We've seen it happen, really, at younger ages. We've seen, teenage girls, high school girls, grade school girls having to compete against boys. The hope is this starts a bit of a snowball effect, and the hope is it includes the Olympics, which are coming to the United States. Ricky, you'll remember this. There was a time after the 70s East Germany scandal with steroids in women where the Olympics were the standard bearer for tough testing. Well, that's gone away. The hope is this becomes a thing that propels the Olympics to get back to serious standards. It propels schools to make clear definitions because, look, Yale had a boy that was a girl that was transitioning to a boy playing on their softball team, the girls' softball team. There's a lot of this that goes unreported. There's a lot of athletes doing this that goes unreported. So the hope is and it's all because of Donald Trump withholding funds, that these schools decide, look, we're going to make clear definitions. It's not about keeping transgender girls out of playing and participating against women. It's about keeping men out of participating against women. That's the hope here from Riley and Paula Scanlon and those that fought so hard for this.
Well, it's the thing that never happens that seems to happen, as you said, with increasing frequency. You know, in Minnesota, the state high school softball championship was won by a team that had a dominant transgender pitcher. So again here, Dan, how is history going to look at this? Because it's always it's so easy to for us to look at this and say, man, this is fucking absolutely insane. What is history going to say about this in 30, 40 years when people look back and you try to explain to your grandkids that, oh yeah, we lived in this weird period of time where people tried to pretend that this was in any way okay?
You know, it's funny you bring up history. Paula Scanlon was a swimmer with Leah Thomas on the women's team at Penn. And when she complained about it, the officials at Penn told her, quote, "You'll be on the wrong side of history with this." Well, turns out that's not exactly true, and those administrators have an egg on their face. Ricky, I gotta believe that history is going to be on the side of common sense. History is going to be on the side of what the fuck were you all thinking? Like, what the fuck was Biden and those idiots in the White House thinking during that period of time, regardless, well, not only about what was happening in the swimming pool, but what was happening on the White House lawn, what was happening in our military, what was happening on our border. I think it's a big umbrella. There's going to be an umbrella over this whole idiotic stage of existence, particularly political existence. And again, Paula Scanlon was told you'll be on the wrong side of history. I can't imagine. I always think this, Ricky, regardless of how things seem to be going, I always think common sense is going to win out. It didn't for a while. It has now, at least in this situation. I got to believe history is going to shine very brightly on Riley Gaines, shine very brightly on Paula Scanlon, and as you mentioned, shine very brightly on OutKick for all of us being at the forefront of keeping this issue alive and not being afraid to speak out.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. Some things in life really actually are simple. I have always believed that the world is shades of gray. You know, it's rarely as simple as sometimes people make it. In this issue, I think we have taken one of the simplest things that there is in the world, and it has been complicated absolutely needlessly into this pretzel. Hopefully, we're starting to straighten it out now. Hey, Dan, before you go, this is a tweet that I put out a couple of days ago asking people who their favorite color commentators are in the history of sports, in any sport. I just simply said, name a great color commentator, and I'll start. And I started with Johnny Miller, who I have always considered to be the best golf announcer of all time. You know, he shot from the hip. He didn't care if he hurt some feelings. He said what he really thought. Always loved that about Johnny Miller. Who for you comes to mind, Dan? Like I say, again, any sport, great color commentator that you've enjoyed.
Yeah, first, I really did enjoy it. I did enjoy Johnny Miller. I enjoyed Johnny Miller big time. I was never that big, not big at all, well, on John Madden. I thought John Madden was full of shit. I know everybody loves him. Rest in peace, blah, 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 blah.
Dan, but, just go. Dan, you have to go now. You can't... You can't besmirch the great name of. All right.
I just did. I mean, you know what? You know, I really liked Howard Cosell as a kid. I did. I liked Howard Cosell because I felt like if Howard Cosell was on an event, it felt big. And Brett Musburger as a play-by-play guy. But when Howard Cosell would do Wide World of Sports, or he would do boxing, or he would do an interview, or he would do Monday Night Football, I was
Battle
like, man,
of the Network
I'm
Stars
watching.
Felt like an event.
I know it did. I swear to God. There are others, you know, that it didn't feel so big. But for me personally, and Pat Summerall, and who the hell was his partner? Tom Brookshire. If Tom Brookshire and Pat Summerall were doing a game, I felt like it was really, really big. That was mine. My all-time play-by-play guy was Chicago Bulls announcer Jim Durham before he passed away because he was descriptive. But I loved, I shouldn't say I loved, I watched when freaking Howard Cosell was doing a game. I just felt like it was a big game, and I had to watch.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that completely.
Sorry about the John Madden. Sorry about the John
Madden.
Hey, but
listen,
I felt like his shit was contrived.
Now, listen, much like Howard Cosell, you call it as you see it. That's why we're Dan Dakich fans. Thank you, my brother. As always. Always a good time, man. Have a good one. He is Dan Dakich. And he's right. Let's test Dan's theory. Can I get the footage of Red Panda falling off of the unicycle here? I just want to test Dan's theory about Cosell. Down goes Panda. Down goes Panda. Down goes Panda. There it is, immediately more dramatic.
The most inconceivable slip of the foot off a pedal that you will ever see.
Right there, the foot comes off the pedal. And she falls to the floor to great indignity in front of the assembled faithful in Minnesota. All right, anyway.
The WNBA has never been more important than tonight.
It's a fine line. It's a fine line between Howard and Stephen A. Smith. Once you start doing the imitating, you realize that real quickly you can veer over into Stephen A. territory. The House of Representatives convened this morning to take up President Trump's so-called big, beautiful bill. The massive domestic policy bill that is going to have to get to his desk by July the 4th for his signature. The House Rules Committee advancing on this could have a dramatic floor vote happening as soon as today. So we'll have to be monitoring this. But there was some controversy yesterday when Vice President J.D. Vance was the tiebreaker in the Senate on this particular bill. The Democrats, some Democrats, taking exception to the fact that the White House put him on second base as a ghost runner in the 10th inning. And he, of course, came around to score. There you see J.D. Vance being called out to second base. And apparently in the top half of the 10th inning, the Democrats, when they went to put their ghost runner on second, it turns out that it was an MS-13 gang member who had been deported earlier in the week. Ron, leaving them without a ghost runner, J.D. Vance coming around to score. I don't know. I remember the days when extra innings could go on much longer than that. J.D. Vance, you wouldn't think that he had speed. You look at him and you're like, probably slow of foot. Not so much. They put him on second there. And by the way, Ron, in other news, as we were talking earlier about the University of Pennsylvania, Penn issuing an apology for allowing Leah Thomas to compete, and they're going to be apologizing to the affected swimmers. Some thinking that the Trump administration going too far. Sean Penn has been made to apologize just simply for being a woke dickhead, Ron. So there are two Penn apologies that are going. Some saying that forcing Sean Penn to apologize is just going too far. But I say that, by God, he needs to apologize just as much for my money. Ron, what do you make of it?
Sean Penn is so disappointing because I wanted to go to my grave thinking about him as Spicoli, and now that's so far in the rearview mirror. He is exactly what you said, a woke dickhead, and that's what he is. He took Spicoli away from me, and I don't like it.
Yeah, well, you gotta compartmentalize, Ron. It's the same thing I do when I listen to Michael Jackson. You got to take like all the 10-year-old boys and the monkeys and the plastic surgery and yeah, you got to take all of that and you put it in this basket. And then over here is like Thriller and Off the Wall and the early Jacksons era. And I just choose to just la, 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 la when it comes to all of that stuff.
Probably
you can still, nobody should rob you of Spicoli, Ron, is all I would have to say.